So there's a saying in Canada, stupid is as stupid does. We just had the World Cup in the USA, Canada, and Mexico. The majority of games were in the States. But President Donald Trump, the dictator, Jesus freak cultist that should be taken down as president of the United States because he only cares about himself. He's made overtures of trying to invade Canada, either economically, mentally, spiritually, whatever. He's a fucking cunt. But this is the pushback against him. He was trying to use members of his own extended family to put pressure on FIFA to have a private equity firm to administer World Cup of football or soccer profits. Now, according to an article today by Canadian Press, Infantino, I'm not even going to mention his name more than his last name because he's a tiny infant. That's what's translation in French. Abandons plans to sell World Cup profits for private equity following massive pushback. Now, this is from Zurich. FIFA President Gianna Infantino, or as we call him in Canada, Small Baby, is abandoning his divisive plan to sell World Cup profits to private equity, which included members of Donald Trump's extended family, after receiving pushback from all corners of the soccer world. Infantino's decision came after his senior advisor, who sat at a White House panel, resigned, and Asia soccer body joined UEFA, or Europe, and North America in opposing it, including the United States Football Federation. Having listened carefully to all the views, it has become clear that the project has created divisions of a nature that, regardless of the level of support, are no longer in the interests of the objectives set out in the first place. Infantino said in a prepared statement Friday, "Our purpose has always been and always will be to unite and improve. As a result, this proposal will not proceed." He's been sucking up to Trump since he started. He gave him a peace prize when Spain won the World Cup. He was basically Trump was in the middle of the Spain celebration photo, and he cut him out as well. We thought it was over, but this is what Infantino did. He had proposed, with push by Trump, creating a $20 billion company to run the World Cup with private investors, including the Kushner family, but drew backlash that grew every day since Tuesday's announcement. It was Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law's brother, that was trying to put this together or leading. Now, UEFA has 55 member nations, or Europe Football Federation. They agreed not only to boycott the World Cup and all other FIFA competitions over Infantino's plan on Thursday, but some have called for his resignation. North America's CONCACAF and the Asian Football Confederation also said they opposed the plan. Some things are simply too important to sell, UEFA said in a statement. The FIFA World Cup belongs to football. It always will, and so long as Europe has a voice, it will never be for sale. Now, you're saying to yourself, ladies and gentlemen, why would Infantino, or tiny infant, think that people were going to go for this deal? He must be extremely, extremely, extremely stupid. Like I said, FIFA has its own rules. You cannot decide or let people decide what football should be by a leader of a country that's never really embraced the sport other than Pele and the NSAL and, New York Cosmos in the 1970s. Donald Trump spends most of his days trying to come up with ideas to make himself better for his cult, to make himself better for the Republican Party. This is not even a Republican Party. It's a white supremacist version of a Republican Party where everybody's scared of him. I'm not scared of him, okay? Conflict of interest is real. If you think you can buck Europe, they can't even get along. He's united UEFA, or the European football teams, all across Eastern and Western Europe. Trump, what he did is united UEFA. I would not be surprised. This is the last World Cup, and we'll talk about this in a second. So this would be comparable with Donald Trump using his family, or his pull, with Gary Bettman to convince the teams in the NHL, even American teams, that the Stanley Cup, unless the Stanley Cup belongs to the NHL and doesn't belong to Canada. The Stanley Cup is a Canadian cup. It was created and presented to the Canadian winners of the NHL until they allowed the Americans to come in. Now, Donald Trump has this idea, like everybody's scared. I'm not scared of him. By the way, if there's any Trump supporters listening to this, get the fuck off my channel. I'm going to be totally true here. He interfered with the suspended player at the World Cup. He got him reinstated where he had a red card. He shouldn't have played at all. Like I don't know what he was thinking. And the Kushners are bad news. So let's go into what he proposed. Now, according to the Canadian press, it's called seismic FIFA backlash. Now, according to AP and CP, Infantino truly looked as the king of soccer, as U.S. President Donald Trump tries to call him, as the two allies sat together watching the World Cup final less than 2 weeks ago. Sure, there were some boos inside MetLife Stadium near New York when the two men walked across the turf to present the trophy and medals to Spain and Argentina players on July 19th. Still, that 104th and final game capped the biggest ever tournament seen as a vindication of FIFA president, a consensus success in the field, and financial bonanza for global soccer. He could look ahead to his likely re-election coronation next March. However, the sunny scene must now feel an eon ago since Infantino caused a seismic rift in global soccer. The intensely fallout has threatened the 56-year-old Infantino's job after he seemed untouchable until this week. His misstep was inviting private investors, led by Joshua Kushner, Jared Kushner's brother, to buy a stake in future profits of World Cup and all FIFA events. The ensuing backlash, including vows by European nations to never play at FIFA events again, and claims from senior staff that Infantino deceived everyone, led Infantino to announce Friday he was abandoning the plan. Now, he left New York City last week with letters pledging election support for about 200 of FIFA's 211 national member federations to vote for the leader every 4 years. Now, even after scrapping his divisive investment project, his support remains unclear at best. What would the plan have done? Infantino's proposal would create a subsidiary known as FFE for the money-making parts of the not-for-profit soccer body's work, running tournaments like the World Cup, selling broadcasting rights and sponsorship, tickets, and hospitality. Okay, USFL Mach 2. Private equity and petrostate sovereign wealth money has been normalized in European club soccer, yet these still seem unthinkable for many observers in the World Cup. Soccer's ultimate prize is about glory, not money, and fans have long believed the World Cup belongs to them. FIFA proposed raising $4.2 billion from investors buying stakes, amounting to about 20% at FFE, based on an equity valuation of $20 billion. The anchor investor would have been Thrive Eternal, launched by Kushner, whose brother Jared is a son-in-law of Trump. Now, FIFA's 211 member feds, already effective owners of the governing body as a nonprofit association under Swiss law, were offered $20 million each. The deadline to accept was September 19th. The members are due $10 million each from FIFA over the next 4 years, funding largely by his record $15 billion revenue over 2003 to 6, tied to World Cup just ended. FIFA says under FFE this would have doubled to $20 million each, then rise to $22 million each through 2034 and $25 million to 2038. Now, the opposition was heavy. His senior advisor, former Goldman Sachs banker Carlos Cordeiro, resigned to call it a bad deal. FIFA chief operating officer Kevin Lamour gave a stinging statement to AP in defense of his colleagues that all of them invited his boss to fire him. You can't quit. I'll fire myself. Now, did anyone support it? His traditional support base for Infantino was in Africa, which has 54 to 211 voting members, had been neutral about the offers of game-changing money for many of them. Now, from here on, what happens with Infantino? Well, does he have the credibility to stay in office? Stay tuned. So, ladies and gentlemen, Little Infant, as we're now calling him, Carmine the Little Infant, is probably the stupidest person we've seen run a league since Gary Bettman started back in the day. Fuck Trump, fuck his family, and fucking quit, because one of these days Canada's going to wake up and take you out.